Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loko Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loko Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Guranavasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Prapta Sakalyana Guranavasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu ki Gita Vaditramadhyam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringara Tanma Niramarjanado Shri Vigrahara Juktasya Bhaktamsa Neyunjatapi Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Chaturbidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturbidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Truptan Kritaiva Trupti Vajato Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Shiradikama Gabayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Shradika Madhura Lila Pratikshana Swa Dhanalolopasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Ne kunjayono ratikeri siddhai jayali vir jokti apekshaniyam siddhai jayali vir tatra tidaksha ativalabhasya vande gurashi Charanara Vrindam Saccadharidena Shamasta Shastri Ruktastatthava Gataiva Sarvi Kintu pravarja priya eva tasya Vande Gurashi charanara vrindam Vande Gurashi Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasada Yasya prasadan Nagati kutapi Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasada Yasya prasadam Nagati Dhyayam stubam tasya Yasatrin sandhyam Vande Gurashi charanara vrindam Gurashi Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatarisha Taurine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Bolo Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hariyaraye Namah Krishna Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaya Keshavaye Namah, Gopal Govindaram Shimadhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Radha Radha, Nila Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Lakshmana Rama. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Premanande, Haribo. Jai Vishpar Param Prabhajacharya Sutara Sri Shishimad, Hituban Gay, Sabhachana Vina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Ceremony. Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhari ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasat Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji ki jai. Jayananta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai. Premisiko ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gauru Bhakta Vrindi ki jai. Jai Param Dayal Sri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai. Jai Brahmanama Sankirtane ka Janaka Prima Purushottam Shri Satchidananda Nishman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavana Avatar ki jai. Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga ki jai. Jugadharma Hari Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Brihat Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Radha Kund Syama Kund Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Shri Braja Bhumi Vrindavan Mathurudham ki jai. Fellowship Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki jai. Shri Shri Maya Purnavadvip Eka Chakradham ki jai. Parama Karuna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Samasva Bhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kari Shingare Bhagavan ki jai. Ganga Mai Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Mathura Dharani ki jai. Shamaveta Bhakta Vrindi ki jai. Nitai Gauri Pramanande. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories to somebody bodies. All glories.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Prahlade Lade Daine. Hiranyakashipu Shiladankarnakalaye. To Narsimho Bharato Narsimho. Yato yato yami tato Narsimho. Narsimho Hridaye Narsimho. Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade. Avakara Kamalavare Naga Adhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Vringa Keshavadrita Narohari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Keshavadrita Narhari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Narsimhadev, 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 Jaya Narsimhadev. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol. श्री विघ्न विनायक नरसिंह देव भगवान की जय। श्री श्री प्रहलाद महाराज की जय।
Namo Vrindayai tulasi devai Priyayai te sabha satya Vishnu bhakti paridevi satavataye Jai Shri Krishna
Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah
Tulasi
कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा
ये तुम्हार शरणलो तारा वांछ पूर्ण हो। कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावनवासी।
कृपा करे
मोरा विलास कुंज दियो नयने रिभो सदा युगल रूपरासी। निवेदन धरो साकीरानुगत करो। निवेदन धरो साकीरानुगत करो। सेवादि कर दिए करो निज दासी। सेवादि कर दिए करो निज दासी। दीन कृष्ण दासी कोई न मोरा होय। दीन कृष्ण दासी कोई न मोरा होय। श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा न भासी। श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा न भासी। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे। हरे कृष्ण Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी। जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी। महारानी की जय
जय। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रहरी शतभक्ताय वृंदाई तुलसी बाई Krishna Bhakti Prabhupada Shatavataya Vrindaya Tulasi Devaya Priyaya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prabhupada Shatavataya Oh, Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. I desire to attend the service of Shri Radha, but take shelter of you as wishes for you. Bestow your mercy upon him, make him president of Vrindavan. My desire is also to grant me a residence pleasure grove, Shri Vrindavan town. So I stood in my region and holy to pastime for Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Dharma to the Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make your own medicine servant. He's very fallen and lowly servant Krishna, please. May I always sing Ram Shri Radha Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrindai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Chaito Dharanam Majam Avaman Agnivapanam Shri Akariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvātmasnam param param vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Vaudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Ita Drushitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrishamya Janinanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amani Namanadena Kirtanya Sadahari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Vajagadishaka Maye Mama Janmani Janmanishari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahaitu Tvai Ainandatanuja Kinkaram Paritama Visame Bhavambudo Kripaya Tapapara Pankaja Stitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galorashudharaya Vadanam Gadugadarudaya Gira Ulakairi Chitamba Pukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavisyati Jugaitam Nimishena Chakshusha Prarusaitam Sunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me Aslishvapadaratam Pinashtumam Adarshanam Marmahatam Karotuva Jatha Tathava Vidadhatulam Pato Matpranatastu Sahibana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai Mama Varandaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaura Tveshe Namaha Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire condition of life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, think of oneself Lord and stroll in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other, I am falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your feet. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render benediction to living beings. No. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? When will the hairs of my body stand on end the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and it should remain so, even if sunders me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Namo Bharanaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gaura Tveshe Namaha. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the names of demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretations on the holy name of the Lord. 7.
To commit
Sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruit of activities of karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema.
Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa tarabhyascha, kripa sindhu bhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha, Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitanam. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Disatani. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapachikamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shivarsavani Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujjvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhakti Da Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Vir Bhavabhunastvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Chuse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Suratur Pangur Mama Mandamater Gati Matsarva Swapadambo Jo Radha Madanamohano Divya Dvindaranya Kalpajumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasarasaran Bivam Sivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatakstriyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai, Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai, Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhe Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Satma Sukalpa Riksha Laksha Vrite Susurabhira Bipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kvananda Arvinda Dalayataksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvana Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiam Chaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantasta Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Muni Pungamanam Sobhyasti Yat Prapadasim Yavichintyat Tatve Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekop Yasora Chaitam Jagaranda Kotim Yas Jakti Rasti Jagaranda Chayayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Nayo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusaha Suktar Yameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Pratibhavita Bistabirya Eva Nijarupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadeva Hidayesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Amenatistan Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamamyo Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Koti Swasesu Vasadadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Vishaya Veda Vitaya Manam Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasru Ya Prani Nam Patifulam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sute Sutesu Te Te Prabhavani Jaya Vitaschayena Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shristista Te Pralaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasya Chichesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yadadadi Vikara Vishesha Yoga Sanjaya Te Nahitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasambhutam Apitata Samapaitikaya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Departure Vihita Santanam Abhyupetya Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadvikeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagananda Saroma Kupaha Adhara Saktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamata Avalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagananda Nata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kalaviseso Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalesa Nijesu Teja Swiyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadvatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagananda Vidanu Karta Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Kanadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Murudisascha Kalastatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Suramurtira Sesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Srutayastapam Se Brahma Dikita Patagava Deyasta Jivaha Yadata Mata Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandhanu Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirda Tikintu Pajat Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Gurugora Vasevya Bhava Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisam Anupapurete Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shayakanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Drumabhumis Chintamani Ganama Itoyam Amritam Kataganam Yam Gamanam Hapivam Sipriya Saki Chiranandam Jyoti Param Apitad Aswadhyam Apicha Sayatra Siradi Bihi Shavati Surabhi Byasta Sumahan Nimesar Dakyova Rajati Nahiyatra Pisamayab Bajay Svita Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golakam Ityam Vidantas Te Santakshiti Virachari Katipaye Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Nadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Brahma Samita Ki Jai. Shikuru Vastika prayers, Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I, from my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master, is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments, the spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet as such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, today we are going to hear about the laws of material nature. And it's absolutely essential that we understand these if we want to have a peaceful and happy life without being disturbed by all the things that happen in the world. And Prabhupada explains this in a very specific and explicit way. And he says, first of all, that laws of nature means laws of God. This, of course, would be denied by the material scientists. But Prabhupada clearly says that the laws of nature means laws of God. And in a lecture on the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 8th verse, in 1968, Prabhupada said, there's no difference between the laws of nature and the laws of God. And then he said, laws of nature means laws of God. Dharmam tu shakshat bhagavat pranitam. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th chapter, 6th canto, 3rd chapter, 19th verse. So Prabhupada says, therefore, Bhagavatam, or Bhagavata says that the religious principle cannot be manufactured by any human being. It is the law of God. Therefore, one has to obey. Now, that means you have to obey whether you understand them or you don't understand them. And some people say, well, that's unfair. I mean, we should learn what they are. Do they teach what the laws of God are or laws of nature are in school? No, they don't teach it. They talk about nature, but they don't understand who made these laws. No law is made by itself. There has to be a body of authoritative or recognized people who can make laws. Just like in the United States, you have the United States Congress that makes laws. You have individuals that own businesses that make rules in that business, what you can do, what you can't do. So, laws don't make themselves. If there is a law that is functioning, then there has to be a lawmaker who made it and makes sure that it functions as it should. So this is something that people don't understand. Although you would think, well, what do you mean they don't understand? Because people make laws. The laws don't appear by themselves. And nature is functioning by these laws. And all scientists will agree that nature is functioning in a coherent way. Like, for example, the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west. Can anybody change that? No. That's a law established by Krishna. And you can't change it. So there are so many laws like that in nature that are functioning in a coherent and sustained way. And yet the scientists claim it happened by chance. This is nonsense. It happened by chance. When everybody else that makes laws, the laws do not happen by chance. They're made by people. So what is the proof that a law happens by chance? And it's functioning day after day. So there are many things functioning like that. And the main point is that if nature was not functioning in an orderly way, if nature was completely chaotic, there would not be any science. Science has to have predictability. So therefore, there's no question of nature is functioning in a chaotic way. It's functioning very, very strict, rigorous way according to the laws established by God. Now, people call them the laws of nature. That's fine, but Prabhupada makes it very clear. Laws of nature means laws of God. So, no one can change them. Like, for example, another law is the law of seasons. There are 4 seasons, right? Summer, fall, winter, spring. Can you change it? No, you can't change it. Can it be tempered somewhat? Yes. You don't see as dramatically at the Ecuador the 4 seasons, but they're still there. But you see it more dramatically, in Washington State or Alaska, places like that. So, but the 4 seasons are always there, even on the equator. So therefore, these laws cannot be manufactured by themselves. There has to be someone behind it. There is someone behind it. And we have to obey them. And if we don't obey them, whether we are trained, as one is trained in Krishna consciousness to obey them, or one is not trained, like in the mundane schools where they don't teach the laws of nature as explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, whether you know about it or you don't know about it, if we violate any law of nature, we get punishment immediately. Right away we get it. Just like fire. You put your hand in fire, you're going to get burned. It's a law of nature. Right? And the fire doesn't say, oh, you accidentally put your hand in me? Oh, okay, I'm not going to burn you. No. The laws of nature are acting blindly. They don't discriminate. Say, it doesn't matter who puts their hand in the fire, they're going to get burned. So, therefore Prabhupada says, one cannot disobey the laws of nature. Law of nature, you cannot disobey. It will be enforced upon you. And therefore he says, you cannot change any of these laws. You have to understand how the laws of nature are functioning. That is Krishna consciousness, to understand the laws of nature. Well, laws of nature are synonymous with laws of God, right? So if you don't understand these laws of nature or laws of God, you're going to suffer, or we are going to suffer. So it's better to learn what they are, and that way to avoid unnecessary suffering. And Prabhupada says, as soon as you speak of the laws of nature, we must accept that there's a lawmaker. Laws of nature cannot develop automatically. There must be some authority on the background. Bhagavad Gita therefore says in the 10th chapter that, the 9th chapter, Maya dakshina prakriti surite sa charachanam. So this is a very important verse where Krishna says that he is the origin of nature and the laws of nature. So he says, Maya dakshena prakriti suyate satcharacharam hetunanena konteya jagat viparivartate. And to read the exact translation, let's see what it says. The material nature is, which is one of my energies, Krishna says, is working under my direction. O son of Kunti, Arjuna, producing all moving and non-moving beings under its rule. What is a non-moving being? It's a tree, right? And bushes and things like that. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So that's another thing we can't change. Creation and annihilation. We have no control over it. And we have no control over birth, old age, disease, and death. These things are laws of nature. It's impossible to change them. But yet, the so-called scientists claim that they can change these things. And that's nonsense. It's cheating. It's misleading people. When you give false information to someone, you're a cheater. So these scientists and philosophers, most of them are all cheaters. They're giving the wrong information to people. And the most vulnerable people are children. They go to school to learn. The mother and father send them to the school to learn. And they're being indoctrinated with false ideas. So how is that education? It's education to be a failure in life. So therefore it says, it is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord, although aloof from all the activities of the material world, remains the supreme director. The Supreme Lord is the supreme will and the background of this material manifestation. But the management is being conducted by material nature. Okay, so when it says the management is being conducted by material nature, what does that mean? Well, it means that you have demigods that are in charge of making sure that the laws of nature are functioning as they should. They're already put in place by Krishna, but he also puts people in charge of different aspects of the laws of nature to make sure that they function in a sustained and predictable way. So this is knowledge. This is real knowledge. Just like when Napoleon was conquering different countries, he would put his men, or some of his chosen men, in charge of that to manage in that country, to manage it for him and make sure it stays under the authority of Napoleon and France. So it's only normal that Krishna appoints people in charge of the different laws of nature to make sure that it's sustained and functioning in the proper way. Nothing organizes itself without intelligent people behind it. So nature did not organize itself. That's a false narrative. Everything starts by a big bang, and by the gravity it all comes together into planets and this thing and that. Those are lies. There's no factual evidence that that's a fact. There's no factual evidence. Those are just theories, and they're not very good theories either, because they don't have good predictability. So therefore, we're being misled on a regular basis. We're being fed false ideas. So therefore, Prabhupada says that, but the management is being conducted by material nature. Krishna also states in Bhagavad Gita that of all the living entities in different forms and species, I am the Father. So Krishna is the seed-giving Father of all living beings. Aham bija pradapita. And again, he says, the Father gives seeds to the womb of the mother for the child. And similarly, the Supreme Lord, by his mere glance, injects all living entities into the womb of material nature. And they come out in their different forms and species, according to their last desires and activities. All these living entities, although born under the glance of the Supreme Lord, take their different bodies according to their past deeds and desires. So the Lord is not directly attached to this material creation. This is hard to understand, because Krishna has infinite and inconceivable powers. And it's hard for us to accept that, because we have very limited powers. And we definitely don't have these, what you would say, a lot of magical powers. There is some magical power that we have. Like, for example, in our body, we are producing blood. That's a magical thing, right? No scientist has been able to produce blood. They have produced certain aspects of blood, but not the whole blood itself. If whoever does that becomes the richest person in the world, because blood is an absolute necessity, especially in wartime, but even because of accidents and so many different reasons, people need infusions of blood sometimes to save their life. So we do have some mystical power in this body, but we don't know, because it's mystical power, we don't really know how it's functioning, right? So you don't know how you're making blood, although your body is making blood. And there are many things we don't know about the body. You might say, well, the scientists know. They don't know everything about the body. And you find this out when you have some pain or sickness, and you go to the doctor, and he does many different types of testing and diagnosis. And finally, after weeks and weeks and weeks of testing and waiting for the test results to come through, they say, well, it may be this or it may be that. So what do they know then, if it's maybe this and maybe that? And oftentimes they say that. They have to say it. Or to cover themselves, they say, oh, it's heredity. Whenever they say it's heredity, that means they don't know anything. So we're in a dilemma here, because, number one, people are not taught what the laws of nature actually are, or the laws of God actually are. And number two, they're misled about it. They're given false narratives about it. So then Prabhupada writes, all these living entities, although born under the glance of the Supreme Lord, take their different bodies according to their past deeds and desires. So the Lord is not directly attached to this material creation. He simply glances over material nature. Material nature is thus activated, and everything is created immediately. Now compare this to what the scientists say, how the world began, how it was created. And they don't accept any of this. They reject it all. So what do you mean? We've had many lives? No, we only have one life. What are you talking about, many lives? And I mean, is life after death? There's nothing after death. This is all fantasy. No, what they're saying is fantasy. This is fact. See? So you will see that the narrative that we're receiving in the newspapers and in school and here and there, it's all false. It's not real. And because of that, people fail to achieve the purpose of life, which we'll get to now. So he glances over material nature. There's undoubtedly activity on the part of the Supreme Lord, but he has nothing to do with the manifestation of the material world directly. This example with the manifestation of the material world, this example is given in the Smriti. When there is a fragrant flower before someone, the fragrance is touched by the smelling power of the person, yet the smelling and the flower are detached from one another. In other words, you can smell the flower, but you haven't touched it, right? It's reaching you by the wind and the air. So in the same way, Krishna, simply by his glancing, he injects living entities into the womb of material nature. And he does it in a particular way through the agent of Shiva and Durga. Durga has the womb, Shiva has the phallus, but Krishna supplies the Jivatma. So that's how it's actually happening. Of course, it's mysterious because, first of all, how can someone from very far away do such a thing and not be touched by it and not be affected by it? See, it's a mysterious thing. And it's only mysterious because Krishna has unlimited powers, unlimited and inconceivable powers. And it's normal because look at all he's done. He's keeping the planets in perfect order. He's making sure the seasons change in an orderly way. He is making sure that the sun is supplying energy and light, heat and light, everywhere in the universe, or at least everywhere where there are planets. And all these things are happening in a regulated way. We would not be able to live if they were unregulated. So we would die very quickly. So then Prabhupada continues. There is a similar connection between the material world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, he has nothing to do with this material world, but he creates by his glance and ordains. In summary, material nature, without the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot do anything. Yet the Supreme Personality is detached from all material activities. So this is real knowledge about Krishna, not the false narrative. Prabhupada also addresses this in the 12th morning walk in May 17, 1973. And he talks about what's called Yogic Weapons. And Prabhupada says, "You have no power to drive away this mist. Scientists merely explain it with some word jugglery, saying that it contains certain chemicals." And then Prabhupada laughs. "But they have no power to drive it away." Dr. Singh, who is Bhakti Swarup Damodar Goswami Maharaj, they do have an explanation as to how the mist is formed. Srila Prabhupada, that they may have, and I may have that also, but that is not a very great credit. If you really know how it is formed, then you should be able to counteract it. Whoa, Prabhupada really, without even hearing what he says, he counters it right away. Then Dr. Singh says, we know how it is formed, Srila Prabhupada. Then discover how to counteract it. Whoa. Formerly, in Vedic warfare, the atomic Brahmastra was used. And to counteract it, the opposing army would have to use a weapon that would transform it into water. But where is such a science today? In other words, he's saying, the Vedic knowledge, they create something like the Brahmastra, but they also create the antidote of the Brahmastra. Look that word up, antidote, A-N-T-I-D-O-T-E. The solution to or how to stop the Brahmastra. See? Like, do they have that? I mean, the United States has produced atomic and nuclear bombs. Do you know? Let's say they throw it and it's going to explode. Can they stop it? No, they can't stop it, right? But in the Vedic culture, they produce things like an invincible weapon called the Brahmastra, which is much stronger than nuclear weapons. But they know how to stop it also. You see? You see how there's a hiatus. What is...
The antidote means a medicine taken or given to counteract a particular poison.
Right. And any other meanings to it? Okay, use the microphone. Yeah.
It's a remedy.
A remedy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So something that counteracts and neutralizes and
counteracts and neutralizes. That's the point. See, so they know how to counteract and neutralize the Brahmastra. That's taught. Of course, Duryodhana was a bad student. Why? He only learned how to lance the Brahmastra. He did not stick around to find out how to stop it. But Arjuna was a good student because he learned both how to lance it and how to stop it. Right? So, there are good students and bad students. There are good teachers and bad teachers. There is real science and junk science. So you see, you should be very discriminating before you accept someone as a teacher. You should analyze first their qualification to be a teacher. Are they eating meat? Are they drinking liquor? Are they engaged in illicit activities? Are they speculators? Right? If they are, then you shouldn't subject yourself to their nonsense, because they're just going to fill you full of false ideas. Right? Ideas that have no substantive meaning to them, or no substantive proof that they're true. So Prabhupada says, so Dr. Singh, he says, mist is something like milk. Milk looks white, but actually it is a colloidal suspension of certain protein molecules. Similarly, fog is a colloidal suspension of water. Prabhupada says, so if you create some type of fire, the mist would be immediately driven away. Water can be driven away by fire, but that you cannot do. If you were to explode a bomb, it would generate heat, and all the mist would go away. And then another devotee says, that might damage the whole city. Srila Prabhupada, everyone knows that fire can counteract water, but you cannot drive away the mist without killing people or destroying property. By nature's way, as soon as the sun rises, the mist is vanquished. The power of the sun is greater than your power. Therefore, you have to accept that inconceivable power exists. Yeah, how would you get rid of the mist? You can't get rid of the mist or the fog, right? But when the sun comes up and it's warm enough, it goes away naturally. So we don't have the power. Well, you could have the power. You could throw an atomic bomb or a nuclear bomb or many bombs, but then you would be destroying things also. So you don't have that subtle power by which you can control mist or fog. So look up what it means what is a colloidal suspension of water. Colloidal, C-O-L-L-O-I-D-A-L. Colloidal suspension of water. It means it breaks water down to very, very minuscule droplets. What's it say? Colloidal suspension.
Yeah, a colloid is a mixture in which one substance consisting of microscopically dispersed insoluble.
That's it, microscopically dispersed. Yeah, go ahead.
Dispersed insoluble particles is suspended throughout another substance.
Yes.
So
That's what a cloud is, and that's what fog is. It's a colloidal suspension of microscopic droplets of water that, see now, usually if you have, like if you put a bucket of water in the sky, right, well, it would fall right away, right? Or if you emptied a bucket of water in the sky, it would fall. But just look at the engineering of Krishna. With the sun, he evaporates water from the ocean, leaving the salt in the ocean, and just gets the water, right? And then he separates it in such a way that it's lighter than the air, and therefore it floats. So a cloud, a big cloud, like on these days where the whole sky is full of clouds, right? There can be hundreds and millions of gallons of water up in the sky, just waiting to get cooler conditions so that those microscopic particles of water coagulate and then become heavier than air and fall down. Or if the weather is correct, and then there's wind, the wind will push those clouds for hundreds and thousands of miles before the rain comes down. You see, so it's an engineering miracle, a cloud. Who did that? Because you have to have the sun, and you have to have an ocean, and you have to have the ability to evaporate, and then you have to separate all the infinitesimal droplets so that it's lighter than air. You have to have air also, right? So the whole thing, if you start thinking about it, it's a miracle. And it's a sign of superior intelligence to have been able to think of such a tremendous way of moving millions and millions of tons of water, hundreds and thousands of miles, right? So that every part of the earth where people are pious is drenched with water, which is necessary to sprout seeds to grow plants. You know. Like, for example, we have a big maple tree at the farm. It's called I think it's either a Japanese or a Norwegian maple tree, right? It's dark purple color, and when the leaves fall, along with the leaves, you have the seeds that fall, and the seed pods, and the seed pods are spread all over, because the seed pod is somewhat like an airplane, and if there's wind, it flies through the air, and it's spread all over the place. We have them all over the farm. They're far away from that one tree, right? And what happens? They fall into our growing boxes, and in spring, like right now, you'll see the seeds sprout, and each one of those sprouts can become a big maple tree, and there's thousands of them, and we have to keep pulling them out and throwing them away. But actually, if we take the sprout out and plant it in a pot, it would grow into a tree, and if we planted the tree somewhere, it would become a gigantic maple tree. I think it's Norwegian or Japanese maple tree. You see, so this is the inconceivable potency of the Lord. It's who made all these things, you know, and it's very, very complicated. and it's synchronized also to continue the species of the maple tree. So Prabhupada says, everyone knows that fire can counteract water, but you cannot drive away the mist without killing people or destroying property. But by nature's way, as soon as the sun rises, the mist is vanquished. The power of the sun is greater than your power. Therefore, you have to accept that inconceivable power exists. And then Prabhupada now explains symptoms of God. Prabhupada says, without accepting the principle of inconceivable power, no one can understand God. God is not so cheap that any so-called yogi can become God. That's the greatest hoax in the world. You know, these yogis who claim they are God. You know, just because they can produce a little bit of ashes, and if you take the ashes and home, all of a sudden your business will go better. Wait a minute. Speak slowly and pronounce your words slowly.
So one of my friend was called me. He joined some like motivational speaker, and he's kind of little bit showing some of the techniques which can help him during day-to-day activities like some pains, meditation, all those things. So he was explaining me about he showed some like rain falling. I mean, with his power, he has some rainfall, just like few seconds or something like that. So it is like, as you are explaining, some yogi or mystic, they have some kind of powers they can exhibit, and people get attracted to that actually.
Wow. I mean, wait a minute. He saw the rain fall?
Yeah, that's what he claimed, yeah.
So, was this in the middle of the desert or where?
No.
Because rain's falling every day here. What's so big about he saw the rain fall? How does he know that the yogi made that?
Yeah, and that's a particular area, but I don't know. Yeah, that's what he said.
No, I mean, if he can do it in a desert, you know, and then all of a sudden plants start growing, then, you know, I would bow down to him too. But if he makes the rain fall in Seattle, what's so big about that? It happens all the time. This is all nonsense, you see. It's he made the rain fall. This is complete nonsense, right?
Stop the rain here.
Stop the rainfall, yeah. He actually called you up and wasted your time telling you that story?
Yeah, it was just general discussion. But he said that at the same time, I told him that,
Did
okay.
he say the yogi is God?
No, not God. They also chant this Om Namo Bhagavate. They do meditation on this. And they start like 15-20 minutes. So it's a kind of a program. They follow like 3-day course or something like.
And the rain is part of the program?
No, he showed some of the techniques that you can do as a. That's what he's saying.
To
but
make rain?
To impress people, maybe he might have done that. I don't know what exactly happened, but.
Well, you should get the exact information here, Prabhu. This is like.
Yeah. No.
You might be onto something, no?
No,
this yogi might be God, you know.
No, he said that he has some powers and he showed some of the powers to the audience.
So the rain was some of the power.
One of that thing actually he was explaining, and then so people join courses.
This is the nonsense that's going on in a place like the United States. That's supposed to be, you know, so advanced in knowledge and blah blah blah. People believe this type of nonsense.
No, not in United States. This is India.
Oh, it's in India.
It's India. Yeah.
All right. Well,
and there are a lot of like motivational speakers nowadays. So
IIT.
Yeah.
Right. People are graduates of IIT. That's like MIT. But yet they believe this nonsense. So he called you all the way from India to tell you this?
Yeah, for some other reason he called me, but he was just discussing that, okay, I am going here, this I am doing. So he was just sharing his experiences, just general discussion, but he somehow that topic comes into discussion.
He's got to be one of the dumbest people in the world. He could, we should report him to the, what's that called? That organization that publishes the names of people who do extraordinary things. Yeah.
Limca Book of Records.
Something like that, right? He can be named in that in the book of records.
Yeah, but they call it as some guru or something. But he's a normal person. He's a businessman. He's not. He's just trained you guys to change your attitude and all those things. It's a kind of a motivational speaker. At the same time, he gives some techniques. Basically,
no, see, he went through the effort of calling you all the way from India to tell you that this yogi that he's seeing.
Yeah, no, it was general discussion.
Made rain.
Yeah.
Was
But
it
he was
inside a building or outside? You have to find out all the facts, Prabhu. Look, did he do it inside the building? I want to know whether it happened inside the building or outside the building. Because outside it's raining all the time.
I can check, Maharaj, but I didn't go into that detail. But he was
you
just.
have to ask these questions. Come on. You should say, was it inside a building that he caused the rain? Or did he break a toilet on the second floor and the water came down and he said, I caused the rain? You know, we want to know exactly what happened. There was this one yogi in Delhi, and every time he would give a lecture, tears would be flowing out of his eyes. They'd just fly out of his eyes. And, you know, everyone was convinced he's God because these tears fly out of his eyes. So one man, he was a follower of this yogi, you know. So without the yogi knowing, he hid himself in his room, in the yogi's room. And after a lecture, the yogi came back into his room, and he started fiddling around with his nose. And eventually, the man who was, you know, his disciple, he saw that he took a big chili out of his nose. And that's why tears were shooting out from his eyes, because he put a chili deep into his nose and nostrils, right, into the sinuses. And because of the heat of the chili, these tears came to his eyes, and they were flying out of his eyes. So then he found out the secret of how the tears are coming out of his eyes, you see. So I want to know the secret. Did he break the toilet on the top floor and the water came down, or what? I want to know how he did it.
He said that you can actually, everybody has that power. I mean, there's like a yogi, like he was talking about.
Let's not assume that the yogi has any power at all. I want to know how he did it. And I want to know whether it was inside or outside. I want you to call him back. He went to the trouble to call you to tell you about the rain. Okay? So I want you to go through the trouble to challenge him and ask him some questions. Exactly.
I asked him, like, okay, then in India, like, there are a lot of droughts, and people, why can't he use for his power to help other people or something?
The drought.
So he said that no, we cannot use that power. He said that you cannot use like that. So just for
Well, how does he know? He's not the yogi.
No, he asked him like, can we use this for?
He asked the yogi.
Yeah, yogi. But he said no, it's not like that.
No,
we cannot keep using liberally everywhere. We should not use these powers.
Toilets in an airplane and break them all, and then it'll come down. Now see, this is what's disturbing. People will believe something and not question it. You have to question it. I mean, how do you know? Just like the story about the yogi who's putting chilies in his sinuses, and then he's producing tears from his eyes. So somebody wanted to find out what was the secret that he had. So he hid in his room, and he watched him after a lecture, and he saw that he was pulling this long chili out of his nose, and that's what was causing the tears to flow. It wasn't that he has, vipralamba bhava, and because of that, tears are flowing from his eyes. Okay. So Prabhupada continues, he says, so one should not accept God cheaply. Hey, this is right on subject now. Nowadays, some rascal comes along and says, I am an incarnation of God. And another rascal accepts him. But Lord Rama and Lord Krishna actually demonstrated their inconceivable power. Sometimes people say that descriptions of their activities are just stories or myths. But these literatures were composed by Valmiki, Vyasadeva, and other acharyas who are all great and vastly learned sages. Why would these great sages simply waste their time writing mythology? They never said it was mythology. They treated the accounts or the stories as actual facts. For instance, in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva tells of a forest fire in Vrindavana. All of Krishna's cowherd boyfriends became disturbed and looked to Krishna for help. He simply swallowed up the whole fire. That is inconceivable mystic power. That is God. Because we are tiny samples of God, or Krishna, we also possess inconceivable mystic power within our bodies, but only in very minute quantities. Okay? And then, scientific knowledge comes from Krishna. The doctors marvel at the complex nature of the human brain. That's the devotee says that. Srila Prabhupada. Yes, but it is not the brain that works the body. It is the spirit soul. Does a computer work by itself? No. A man works it. He pushes the button, then something happens. Otherwise, what is the value of the machine? You can keep the machine for thousands of years, but it will not work until a man comes to push the button. But who is working the machine or the man? Similarly, the human brain is also a machine, and it is working under the direction of Paramatma, an expansion of God within everyone's heart. See? This is a real explanation. Scientists should accept God and his mystic power. If they don't, they should be considered foolish, as Prabhupada says that. On the basis of transcendental knowledge, we are directly challenging many big scientists and philosophers. The other day, you brought that chemist, and I told him, "You are foolish," but he was not angry. He admitted it, and I defeated all his arguments. Perhaps you remember. Dr. Singh. Yes, in fact, he acknowledged that perhaps Krishna didn't give him all the procedural steps needed to perform his experiments. Srila Prabhupada. He is against Krishna, so why should Krishna give him any facilities? If you are against Krishna and you want credit without Krishna, you will fail. You must first be submissive, and then Krishna will give you all facilities. We dare to face any scientist or philosopher and challenge him. How? On the strength of Krishna. I know that when I talk with them, meaning the scientists, Krishna will give me the necessary intelligence to defeat them. Otherwise, from the viewpoint of scientific qualification, they are much more qualified than we. We are laymen before them, but we know Krishna, and Krishna knows everything. Therefore, we can challenge any scientist, just as a small child can challenge a very big man, because he knows, my father is here. He clutches the hand of, he clutches the hand of his father, who makes sure that nobody can harm him. So, just like a child has complete faith that the father is going to protect him, so he's not afraid. He's not intimidated. Right? So in the same way, if we're absolutely sure that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he has inconceivable potency, then we're not afraid to challenge even the biggest scientists. And this is exactly what happened. A big scientist came to UC, the University of California in not Berkeley, but in Southern California. And what's the town where the Disneyland is in Southern California? Anyway, it's at the UC Anaheim. Yeah, so the University of California in Anaheim. So, and he's a world-renowned scientist. So Prabhupada was informed by his disciple, Dr. Singh or Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, that this big scientist was coming. So Prabhupada said, you challenge him. You tell him, because the scientist was lecturing on how you can produce life from chemicals. He was talking about chemical evolution of life. That's his PhD. That's his field. So Prabhupada said, you challenge him. You ask him, if I give you all the chemicals, can you make a living cell? Only one cell, right? So after the lecture was over, that scientist said, are there any questions? And Dr. Singh, or Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, raised his hand, and he said, yes. He said, if I give you all the chemicals, can you produce a living cell? And the man said, no. So he's writing books about how a chemical evolution, right? And he asks him a direct question, and he says no. So therefore, what's the meaning of his lecture? What's the meaning of his PhD? What's the meaning of his scientific research? You know, he admitted that he can't do it, even if he receives all the chemicals. So, I mean, let's see what Prabhupada says. I think he speaks about this right here. He says, nowadays, some rascal comes along and says, I am an incarnation of God, and another rascal accepts him. But Lord Rama and Lord Krishna actually demonstrated their inconceivable power. Okay, so he says, okay, now he's talking about the machine, the computer. He says, what is the value of the machine? You can keep the machine for thousands of years, but it will not work until a man comes to push the button. But who is working, the machine or the man? Similarly, the human brain is also a machine, and it is working under the direction of Paramatma and expansion of God within everyone's heart. Scientists should accept God and his mystic power. If they don't, they should be considered foolish. On the basis of transcendental knowledge, we are directly challenging many big scientists and philosophers. The other day, you brought that chemist, and I told him, you are foolish. But he was not angry. He admitted it, and I defeated all his arguments. Perhaps you remember. Dr. Singh. Yes, in fact, he acknowledged that perhaps Krishna didn't give him all the procedural steps needed to perform his experiments. Srila Prabhupada. He is against Krishna, so why should Krishna give him any facilities? If you are against Krishna and you want credit without Krishna, you will fail. You must first be submissive, and then Krishna will give you all facilities. We dare to face any scientist or philosopher and challenge him. How? On the strength of Krishna. I know that when I talk with them, Krishna will give me the necessary intelligence to defeat them. Otherwise, from the viewpoint of scientific qualification, they are much more qualified than we. We are laymen before them. But we know Krishna, and Krishna knows everything. Therefore, we can challenge any scientist, just as a small child can challenge a very big man because he knows, my father is here. He clutches the hand of his father, who makes sure that nobody can harm him. Dr. Singh. Is the human form of life spoiled for those who do not try to understand Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada. Yes. People who do not try to understand their relationship with God simply die like animals, like cats and dogs. They take birth, eat, sleep, beget children, and die. This is the sum total of their human lives. These rascals think, I am this body. They have no information of Atma. Atma means the self or the individual soul. Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita give us knowledge about the Atma, but people are unaware of this. People are unaware of the knowledge given to human society in the Vedic literature. For example, the Vedas inform us that cow dung is pure. Here in America especially, people bring their dogs into the street to pass stool. Of course, dog stool is very impure. Germs thrive in it. But people are such rascals that they do not consider this. Instead, they distribute dog stool everywhere. But there's no cow dung to be seen, even though the Vedas say that cow dung is pure. Here is a sign, littering illegal, but dog stool is allowed. Just see how foolish people are. It is illegal to drop a paper on the grass, but your dog is allowed to pass stool. The government authorities will not allow you to bring even one mango from another country, but they will allow your dog to distribute its stool everywhere, although the street is full of infectious germs. So Prabhupada is defeating the scientists, and Dr. Singh, he has a PhD in chemical engineering. He is a scientist, right? But he is completely flummoxed. He doesn't know what to say because Prabhupada is defeating his arguments right away. No hesitation at all. Okay, so therefore, coming back to the laws of nature. So Prabhupada says that, again, the laws of nature are the laws of God. And he says, they do not know who is behind this nature. He's talking about the scientists. But that is intelligence, to know who's behind nature. Nature in itself is dead matter. Just like this microphone. This is matter, material. What is that? Some iron, some plastic, or something. Some wood, maybe. But this iron and wood or iron and plastic combination cannot take place and become a microphone by itself. No. There is life behind the iron and wood and plastic. That means there's a person behind those raw materials that was used to make this microphone, right? And there's a person behind the concept of the microphone and how it works and how it's connected to electricity and so forth, and what you have inside so that it works. So Prabhupada says, it is a machine, but the machine is manipulated and manufactured by life. Life meaning the person who conceived the idea of making the microphone, and then who supplied the raw materials to make it, right? Who supplied the raw materials? It's Krishna, because there's metal, there's plastic, there are wires, and so many things. You know, there could be maybe 300 or 400 raw materials that are needed to put this thing together, right, and make it into a microphone. No, it is a machine. But the machine is manipulated and manufactured by life or by people. Not that automatically the raw materials becomes the machine. No. But these rascals, they cannot understand that. The nature is working, that's all right. But how it is working, what is the background, that they do not know. That answer is in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 10th verse. We just read the verse and the purport. This is Srimad Bhagavatam lecture, Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 1st chapter, 19th verse, in Honolulu, May 19th, 1976. Right. So, then he says, so these rascals, they cannot understand. The nature is working, that's all right, but how is it working? What is the background? That they do not know. The answer is in the Bhagavad Gita. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate satcharacharam. Krishna is controlling nature. He has set up the laws of nature. They are the laws of Dharma or the laws of God, right? Because Krishna is the person who made them. Under my superintendence, Krishna says, everything is working. That's a fact. You might have manufactured a very big machine. That is all manufactured, but that is all manufactured by some light. Now, why does he say that? Can anyone tell me? He says, you might have manufactured a very big machine, but that is all manufactured by some light, L-I-G-H-T. Why does he say that? Well, because there's plastic, there's metal, right? So this is mostly made out of plastic and metal. Right? Now, why does he say it's all made by light? Because the energy that produced the minerals and the different substances or raw materials is made by the light of the sun. And the light of the sun is the effulgence of the Lord. You see? So the sun is supplying all the energy in the universe. And there's only one sun. This again is another very contentious thing. The scientists would say, no, all the stars are suns. And the Vedas say there's only one sun that's providing energies for the whole universe. So, obviously, our sun, we're very close to it, is producing a tremendous amount of energy. And it's going everywhere in the universe. Now, the question is, how come outer space is dark when there's sunlight emanating everywhere? Can you answer that question? Use the microphone.
When the general physics principle is that there's something to reflect, light should be there. That, so for example, when the sunlight is falling on the earth or other planets, we can see those planets reflecting that light, whereas the rest of the space does not have anything to reflect off of. So that's the general physics principle. So that's why it's dark everywhere else, and then only wherever there is a reflectable object. Then
Anybody else have another theory? Why space is dark, but yet light is being sent everywhere? Actually, the scientists do not know exactly why. They have theories like what you're saying, but they're not absolutely sure why the space is dark when the light is going everywhere. You would think that the whole space would be lit up, right? So it's mysterious. There are a lot of things that people don't understand. So look it up. Do scientists know why space is dark, although the sun is spreading light throughout the whole well, they say every star is a sun, right? So how come the space is dark then?
They say they are two apart from each other, and the light can only travel to some distance because the light travels as a wave.
But there's millions and billions of stars, and they're all supposed to be suns.
But still, they would argue they're still apart from each other to make this universe full of light.
Well, we're close to the sun, but the space between the sun and us is still dark. Is that true?
It can be repeated because when you see the sun, you cannot see darkness.
But is the space between the sun and the earth dark, or is it light?
In direct path,
It's like when the astronauts go to the space station, which is only 400 miles, do they see light or do they see dark?
they would argue if you have a light and some object is blocking the light, then you will see the dark. Basically, let's say the sun is in this here, and then Earth comes in this direction, and the astronauts are on the other side of the Earth. Basically, they would experience the dark.
Okay. Anyway, they don't really know clearly. What does it say? What does it say?
so there's one article in 2020 only.
It's not working. The microphone's not working. Go ahead. You might have turned it off.
So there is one article about in November of 2020. It is scientists discover outer space isn't pitch black after all. So this is some new discovery. And then they're saying, is space truly black? Says Todd, an astronomer with the National Science Foundation in Arizona. He says, if you could look at the night sky without stars, galaxies, and everything else given to else known to give off visible light, does the universe itself put out a glow? It's a tough question that astronomers have tried to answer for decades.
See? So they're still not sure.
Yeah, this is another theory.
Yeah. So, you see, there are very mysterious things happening in the universe. Now there are different theories. You explain one theory, there's another theory, but that doesn't really give you the exact reason. They're just theories. But it's confusing because you would think that if all the stars are suns, there would be light spread throughout the whole universe. But it doesn't look like that when you get out there. One more theory, okay. It's that yogi that made the...
No, it's also scientific actually, it looks like. Because space is near perfect vacuum, meaning it is exceedingly few particles. There is virtually nothing in the space between the stars and planets to scatter light to our eyes. And with no light reaching the eyes, they see black. That's what they written.
Okay, so then would you say that there's only light when the light of the sun is reflected by a planet or a star?
That's what this definition they are
No, but
saying.
you see, they're claiming that every star is a planet, is a sun.
Yeah.
But what happens in the daytime?
But if you accept that the only time you see light is when it's reflected off of a star or a planet or the moon, then that supports the idea that there's only one actual sun in the universe, because it has to reflect off of something. So they're saying now that because there's very few particles in outer space, there's nothing to it's not enough to reflect, and therefore to light up the space in between the planets.
So the question is like, why do we have a night? Because in the nighttime there should be light off of some other star.
Well, there's an easy explanation of that, because the Earth is rotating, and then
but if there are multiple stars and the light is all over, then but I mean, this probably confirms what you were referring to, which is that sun is the only source of light, because if every other star is also
it's just reflecting. Yeah.
I mean, if every other star is also light source, then we should be able to see the light even in the night. Yeah.
Well, if every star is emanating light, then you should be able to see it a lot more than what people experience when they go into space. So anyway, if you come to the conclusion that light has to be reflected in order to see it, reflected by something in order to see it, that just supports that there's only one real star or one real sun in the universe. Okay, so, but in the Vedas clearly say that the light of the moon is a reflection of the sun's light, and the light of the different planets is a reflection of the sun. And there's only one actual sun in the universe.
Are they referring to just because there are innumerable universes? Is it like they're referring to universe as in like the solar system?
Now you have to understand, everything that we can see in this universe, which includes many different planets and stars and so forth, that's one universe. And this universe is covered by 7 coverings, and each is 10 times bigger than the other. And then once you get through all those coverings, and once you get to that point. By the way, there's complete darkness in those coverings. And once you get through to them, and go past them, then you come to another universe. It's not that every galaxy is a universe in this universe. No. It's everything, that's included in some kind of oval or round shape that has 7 coverings on it also. So actually the coverings are much bigger than the actual space that we see. You see, so it's bewildering. The scientists know this too, that they talk about dark matter. There's much more dark matter than what we're seeing, and we don't see the dark matter. And it makes sense. Prabhupada said, look, where did the ocean come from? The ocean is made up of a huge amount of hydrogen and H2O, oxygen. Where did all that quantity of hydrogen come from? And this is only on one planet, right? So he says it comes from the reserve, that what the scientists call the dark matter. All that hydrogen, all that oxygen, and so forth. And then how did it combine, right? If you were going to make an experiment to make water, starting with hydrogen and oxygen, you would see that it would cost you a lot of money, and you would only make a very small amount. Right? So then, how did the ocean come from? Where did it come from? Where did all that huge amount of hydrogen and oxygen come from? So all these questions, when you look into them more deeply, you realize there's mysticism involved. There's something that people don't understand. The scientists don't understand. They're just awed by it, awed by the quantity and complexity of doing such a thing, like making enough water to fill an ocean. It's mind-boggling. Right? Okay, so what time is it now? 7:35. Okay, so we see, unless we understand the laws of nature. Now, I didn't go through all the laws of nature. I was just giving small examples. But this is what our booklet is going to include, the entire, well, as much as we know of the laws of nature. I have at least 40 points of laws of nature. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Now, we have to, by next week, have, and I'm going to work on it also, a general outline and of everything that's going to be in the booklet. At least an outline of everything in the booklet. So right now, the booklet is all about the unique things that Lord Chaitanya introduced that pushed forward the knowledge of Krishna and the spiritual world. Okay, and also the Sankirtan movement as the Yuga Dharma in this age, in Kali Yuga, and by which people can easily be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So there are all those points, but when you get into those points, you also have to know whether the laws of nature, you also have to know what are the benefits in Kali Yuga as opposed to other yugas. You also have to know what is the material conception of life. and then, okay, so the outline of the booklet, the subject of the booklet is what are the things that Lord Chaitanya introduced in the age of Kali to make the Harinam Sankirtan the Yuga Dharma and make the whole process of becoming liberated from the cycle of birth and death easy, right? So, but as you get into that subject, you also have to understand what are the laws of nature and what is the material conception of life and what are the the astonishing benefits in Kali Yuga, which is the worst time to be in the material world. There are actually tremendous benefits as dispensations, meaning to help people make a spiritual advancement in this very difficult age for spiritual advancement. Okay, so we have to write up the basic outline of the booklet that we're going to write. Okay, so the best way to do it is you take different parts. Each person takes one part and tries to put it. Then we can put it together. So, so you already took the notes, right, about the things that Lord Chaitanya introduced, right? Okay. So, who wants to do the laws of nature? I will give you my notes, and you can also research too. Anybody want to do the laws of nature? This is a lot of work. This is like writing a book. You want to do the laws of nature? Okay, then I'll give you the information, right? And then who wants to do the material conception of life? You going to have the time, Prabhu? This is tax time. Huh? What? Next week. No, don't do it. It'll be. You have so much work to do now. You concentrate on the Northwest Share and the temple. Yeah. Okay. So who would like to do? Yes? You want to do that? All right. So that's the material conception of life, right? And then there is the, oh no, was it laws of nature? No. Adidev, yeah, okay. You take the material conception of life, okay. And then there's the benefits of being in Kali Yuga. You are? You should not let Shasta do it. Okay. All right. So let's just stop there. And that's the homework for next week. This is the way you write a book. And then anything else that you think would be helpful to understand the uniqueness of Lord Chaitanya's instructions about the Yuga Dharma in Kali Yuga. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So basically, what were we talking about today? Basically, we're talking about how you can defeat the scientists and the philosophers who are atheists. This is what Prabhupada is teaching us in the Life Comes from Life and these lectures that I mentioned and in Bhagavad Gita. How you can defeat them in discussions, not by argumentation, but by presenting factual examples. So that means you would have to very carefully read this book, Life Comes from Life, and see the arguments that Prabhupada is making to defeat the scientists. You also have scientific dialecticalism, a spiritual dialecticalism book that has many arguments how to defeat the atheists and the scientists. And then you have also the different lectures that Prabhupada, the book, which is The Laws of Material Nature, written by Prabhupada. So there's a lot of information on how to defeat the atheists and the scientists and the philosophers in discussion. Haripal. Who's going to chant? Previously, we have had contests where one group of devotees takes the part of the speculators and scientists, and another group takes the part of Prabhupada's explanations of how to defeat them. So I would like to do that again, but in a more, let's say, focused way, with people actually preparing themselves to present the nonsense scientist point of view, and others presenting Prabhupada's defeating those scientists. Go ahead.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Bandhu moi savadhana mathe. Bandhu moi savadhana mathe. जहरा प्रसादे भाई ये भव तोरिया जाय. कृष्ण प्राप्ति होय जहाँ होयते. मुख पद्मा वाक्या चिते ते कोरिया क्या.
मुख पद्मा वाक्या चिते ते कोरिया क्या.
आरना कोरी हो माने आशा.
Oran Korea Maneya Sa.
Sri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati. Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha.
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha.
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से.
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 दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित हो.
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित हो.
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित हो.
हृदय प्रकाशित हो.
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या नाशे जाते.
भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनष्ट जाते.
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते.
जहाँ होते अविद्या विनष्ट जाते.
वेदे गाय जहाँ चरित हो. वेदे गाय जहाँ चरित हो. श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनारा बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनारा बंधु लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया
प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पद छाया
प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया ए बेचासा कुशको त्रिभुवना ए बेचास कुशक त्रिभुवना श्रीला प्रभुपाद पतित पावना जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा
Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada.
Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namini Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarini
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine.
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jaya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajakacha Statara Satarishi Shimad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sakho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasni Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanand. All glories to the assembled devotee, all glories to the assembled devotee, all glories to the assembled devotee, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter at lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu.